Hello, welcome back to this channel. I'm the Spell Singer, and this is my final review for the Sagard the Barbarian Gamebook series. And this review is going to give you a quick look at this title with its book number. We'll go through the blurb, we'll check out the plot, look at the locations of this book, and then we'll talk about the game mechanics and the adventure sheet, go through the artwork, and talk about some of my own likes and dislikes, any fun facts, and then I'll give you a summary and a score out of 10 for Sagard the Barbarian, Fire Demon. Yeah, so this is book 4, final book in this series, The Fire Demon. It came out in 1986. Now this is by the same two authors, Flint, Dille and good old Gary Gygax, for the D&D world. Now the cover art, UK cover art, which is this one here. This was Dille. I've always liked this one. I kind of prefer the UK artwork to the USA artwork. I don't know, it just looks more barbarian-like to me. And weirdly, the USA one, it says that it was this one here, James Warhola. But I always thought it was Richard Corbin that did the artwork, and it's the same style, so I'm thinking it is Richard Corbin. I've no idea who James Warhola is. Maybe a comment and let me know, be good to know. But yeah, so the internal artwork, so that's changed as well. Ian McCaig is on board now, good old Ian McCaig. He's given us the illustrations for this book, and they're brilliant, absolutely brilliant, as you would expect. So let's read the blurb for Fire Demon. You are Sagard the Barbarian questing for treasure. You must battle your way through the heart of the jungle as you search for the lost city of Sandaul. You will encounter the bloodthirsty scimitar assassins and hideous slithering slimer, and worst of all, the grey-fleshed, soulless zombies. But will you survive your encounter with the dark sorcerer Ushad-I and the Fire Demon? Fight bloody battles against merciless foes. There can be no going back, no surrender. Live or die, the choice is yours. Yeah, so standard fare for Sagard the Barbarian on another quest, final quest. So the plot and the locations for this book. So you are, again, Sagard the Barbarian. That's who you are. And you're back for another session of hacking and slaying in this fantasy setting. And if you remember, you lost your girlfriend, Quetzalcoatl, who you picked up in the second book and was taken from you in the third book. And despite putting up a fight, you had to try and rescue her. Now, you're slumming it out in the Middle Eastern influenced city of Taboo Bellaboo. And basically it's a city of minarets and treachery. And the campaign, you learn of Sandaul, which is the lost city of Ivory. So that's kind of like the main feature in this book. Main plan is to get there. So in the jungle ruled by the evil Ushad-I, and the treasures allegedly stashed away there, you've got to kind of make your way there and deal with this fire demon fella. And with Soltun Fakadi, ruled by the evil Ushad-I, and the treasures, he's kind of putting a price on your head. And sort of every other villain in the place is trying to get your head too. So your head is in big demand. And you kind of think, well, best to leave town, leave good old Taboo Bellaboo. So you decide to hire a bunch of men to join you and take a trip to locate this lost city. And you plan to explore this jungle where you think the city is in order to search for it, the city of Sandaul. And meanwhile, an evil sorcerer, so there's a lot going on, evil sorcerer is searching for you in order to rip out your heart and use it in a transformation spell. And the jungle sorcerer who steals all these different body parts, like a regular Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein, he's going to take all the body parts of men and make himself like physically perfect. That's his plan. So he decides he needs the heart of a brave man. Sagard, you. And this book starts with you getting captured by the brother of the Sultan you killed, in that earlier book, Crimson Sea. Basically a fun escape leads you to sort of recruiting an army of men, ex-slaves, to travel south, travel to south to see this wizard. And the location of this adventure it begins in Taboo Bellaboo. So as you can see from this map, you can see the path that takes you south to Sandaul and the lost city of Ivory. It's a really cool map. The maps always change ever so slightly as you sort of progress through this world. Really like the maps actually. But yeah, there you can see the distance we have to travel. Right, let's talk a bit about the game mechanics and the adventure sheet for Fire Demon. Now, in terms of mechanics, as you would have guessed, not much has changed. The battle mechanics are the same. Occasionally there's some weapon and armor additions which kind of act in a similar-ish fashion, where you can sort of add 1 to your damage dice or reduce 1 from any damage you take, depending on whether it's a weapon or a piece of armor. And encounters and battles in Book 4 are considered sort of one of the weaker points of this book, one of the weaker aspects, sort of requiring excessive dice rolling, making for a slightly uninteresting combat. I think I've talked about this before, but if you don't mind all that dice rolling, then you'll be in a good place. And at the start, you need to kind of acquire enough money to, to sort of build up this army of yours. This army of slaves and men. You've got to get as many as you can. And then once you enter the jungle, the slaves are really important, of course, because they're the ones that deal with all the combat for you. Most of the combat situations where you're using them to sort of fight for you. But of course you can lose a lot of these guys. So you need as big an army as possible. And there are a few moments where you really have to decide whether to sort of trust various potential allies as well that could join your team. The money, you're probably wondering, because you can get quite a vast sum of wealth sort of towards the end of Book 3. And all the time I was thinking, what is all this money for? And of course, at the beginning of this book, you can end up with thousands of gold coins, but of course you will need them all to get this little army together. So it all explains itself eventually. Now, the adventure sheet has become more and more minimal as we go through these books. So it's more or less the same, except you've just got the addition of men. So that's where you write, the amount of men that are in your army, lots of men. Yeah, so otherwise it's bog standard. In fact, I think if I look at my copy, it is literally, your experience marks, which of course you'll be carrying over, your level, which by now should be 4, your gold, which by the end of this book you won't have much left, your armor and weapons, again, you would have carried over, and the effect that they have on combat, and special items, and then obviously men. That's where you put your army. Yeah, so that's the adventure sheet. Now the artwork, for this 4th and final book. The internal artwork is by good old Ian McCaig. So again, he's well known for those fighting fantasy books. He was a great author for them, actually. He did a lot of books, and he still, I think Ian McCaig did the most recent book, Dungeon on Blood Island, with Ian Livingstone. So I'm pretty sure he's still game for doing his bit for these books. He kind of took over from Leslie Marill, from the previous series, and provides kind of a rich list of illustrations of characters, lots of detailed environment, and a welcome kind of distraction from the slightly weak narrative. I think it's safe to say he's kind of on form in this book as well. So this would have been kind of early days, but his style suits the adventure really well. Which is a good thing, those steaming jungle illustrations, all the ferocious animals that he's drawn, and the detailed character artwork. McCaig, he's an American artist, obviously, writer and filmmaker as well. Of course, he was involved in the Star Wars franchise and other iconic films and book-based projects, including the album cover of Jethro Tull's The Broadsword and the Beast. So for those of you that know that one. Now, I've got a favourite picture. It's this skeleton on reference 69. I'll read that so you can get an idea of what inspired Mr. McCaig to come up with such a thing. But it is horrendous to look at as a kid. It did used to creep me out a little bit. Yeah, kind of turning on his shoulder with his weapon and his cloak and his rancid, stretched skin. So this says, during the night your dreams are beset with ghoulish images, sorcery and flame demons. Awakening with a start you peer into the night. Following instinct, which has saved your life many times in the past, you slowly rise, grasping your sword. A slight rustling tickles the air as a figure steps through the nearby scrub. Who goes there, you shout? I was going to do an Arnie accent. Hot blood courses in your veins as you pursue feeling figure of a narrow mountain path. The figure, though small and thin, is not agile. In fact, it's rather clumsy as it stumbles through the night. As you close in on the figure, it spins around. Though you have seen many horrifying things in your time, you have never seen anything as ghastly as this undead horror. This figure is human, his face charred, deep eyes, hollow sockets of death. Raising a sharp spear, the hideous creature hisses at you in your own tongue. Get away, Ratican. Startled by the undead horror, you have a choice. You may either back off and let the terrible creature flee, or you may attack it. So, yeah, favourite picture. The likes and dislikes for the Fire Demon. I really like how each of these books in the series is kind of set in vastly different locations. You had the ice wastelands of the Ice Dragon, you got that urban adventure from the Green Hydra, and you had that seafaring Crimson Tide. And then of course now you've got the jungle of Fire Demon. So this game book kind of continues in the same style and the language as its sort of predecessors. It's a fun continuation. However, if you're looking for something slightly different, then you would be perhaps a little bit disappointed with this one. There are still loads of battles, lots of die rolling to the point of exhaustion. And if you like that sort of thing, then you're going to be absolutely fine. But after the previous 3 books full of that, I was feeling a little bit tedious with that. But yeah. There are some fun facts for this book. Now, because of their age and the cult following, the original paperback editions can be quite pricey to collect, you know, and they're quite rare. And mine are in quite good condition because I looked after them. But yeah, they're quite pricey. So if you get lucky and you see one in a charity store, then grab it because they're worth a bit of money now. So yeah, as mentioned, also with this series, it was co-authored by Gary Gygax, and these books were written during the kind of tumultuous time period with Gygax when he was being forced out of TSR, the company that he helped create. So I always got the feeling that some of the this later book was more Flint Dille and Gary Gygax, potentially. I don't know, but that was the feeling I got while reading it. Right, let's do a summary and a score for the Fire Demon. Now, while it features an interesting, albeit somewhat disjointed, kind of adventure scenario, the Fire Demon suffers mostly from poor writing. Now, it also has that high volume of combat mechanics and kind of limited player agency as well. So it doesn't have lots going for it, but it does wrap up the series in an okay way. Sometimes you feel like random series of encounters that you're having all these random series of encounters rather than a more cohesive quest. Fire Demon is the last game book in this series, like I said, but it offers little sense of closure, which is a bit of a shame to the series. And while there are some interesting storytelling elements within it, the whole thing is a little bit fragmented. It doesn't help that you behave more of a villain in this one, whereas you were very much all about morals in that first book. So it might just be that your character has changed over time. But yeah, I did get that feeling, you're killing people a lot more at will and breaking the laws in this one while suffering no real repercussion. So that's quite noticeable. The one thing that made it worse by far for me was the easy combats. Most of them are way too easy. And the ability to heal at the end of every single battle just hampers that. But the final boss is pretty tough, so it kind of balances out, I guess. This is a kind of meandering conclusion to an overall good series. For the best part, or for the most part, this is more of a sort of standard game book than the previous two, certainly, with less kind of striking features, less memorable events going on. It was enjoyable, though, like I say, the writing was a bit poor. There was still a reasonable amount of variety in the sort of different combat situations to keep you interested. I also think the jungle environment is probably a favourite of mine, actually, when it comes to game books. It's quite well described, that one particular section. But you do spend most of your time in this jungle environment. Although there's only 97 references in this book, I got two quite different endings, two relatively different playthroughs. So there's quite an open world in that respect, a bit like all the previous books, really. You can pretty much go anywhere you want. You're always going to, again, end up at that same sort of trunk point, But yeah, whereas books 2 and 3 introduced some flexibility which made them different, this book has far less. There is little to say here that really hasn't already been said in my previous reviews. The book is filled with battles, the individuals in mass combat, heavily stacked in your favour. And while there are several paths in the book, that open world feel, the encounters in the story are quite unimaginative. It seems like a bit of a rush job, perhaps. As in previous books, it's possible to defeat the final enemy with, lucky dice roll. An author trademark that goes, it does little to raise any interest, really. The enjoyable aspect is, of course, Ian McCaig's artwork, his illustrations, which are really good. So it's good to have him on board. And like I said earlier, it does kind of give you a little distraction from some of the poor writing. And overall, the series feels a little bit unfinished with this one, especially because it is possible to become separated from the main love interest, Quetzalcoatl, in the third book. And while a future reunion is hinted at, it never happened. So in this book, the authors hint at subsequent books, but of course that didn't transpire either. A disappointing end to the series in general, I would say. I don't know if I'm being too harsh. It's slightly more difficult than the prior books. I suppose you could say, especially for a new Sagard reader, if you've jumped on this one now and you've not read the 3 and you haven't sort of progressed your character, then yes, it probably would be quite tricky. But if you've been reading this since the first book, you should be almost unbeatable. Now, unfortunately, the writing, like I say, is a little bit poor. The villain is conceptually interesting, but it doesn't really feature until the finale. You hear about him, but you don't actually get to sort of see him or come across anything that he's done, this fire demon, until the very end. And has to be sort of forced into the book at that point, a bit out of character, I felt. This reflects the minimal sort of motive for Sagard as well, to decide to seek death in the jungle. There's very little sense of place. There's a little bit of exploration. There's not much agency in this one as you sort of stumble from one disjointed encounter to the next, none of which are particularly interesting. There is also a possible loop as well. So it's a bit of a game breaker for me, those loops, when you get caught in them. The art is good, but there isn't much of it. In fact, I think there's about 9 pictures. So that's not that great. But what there is very high standard. It's a poor end to a series, really, which at least had some qualities and effort, throughout the first 3 books. I think for that reason, I'd probably give this book a 5 out of 10. So that's my review of The Fire Demon. A good book to say you've got the final and to be able to finish it, but it could have been a lot more. So that was my review of Sagard the Barbarian, The Fire Demon. That's the end of that series. There are no more, so I hope you liked it. Maybe give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments what you thought of this book. If you read it, if you did, what were your thoughts on it? Did you like it? Was I being too harsh? But either way, share it out if you really like it or you think someone might enjoy it. And I will see you in a new review.